Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Let me say hi to everyone in the chat. I'm sorry that I started late. I'm so sorry. Hi, Tawny C. Hi, Meatball. Hi, Kat. Hi, Annie Kurtz. Hi, Rio for Life Kim D. Hibbing, Minnesota says hello. Well, hello, Hibbing. Hi, Mr. Crow. And hi, Don Lambert, and hi, Auntie Green. Okay, I think I'm caught up. All right, so uh hi, Anna the Inbred Nazi. Hello, thank you so much for being here. Hi, Morgana. Thank you. Yeah, so I was delayed because I can't find the freaking file that I had literally like highlighted, put together. Don't know what happened to it. So we might just have to kind of free ball it, right? It's not me being noited. Don't know where it went. However, we are going to be discussing because we can talk about Mr. Lanning all day. I don't necessarily need that report, but I did have some really good stuff in it, so that kind of makes me mad. We are going to talk about Mr. Kenneth Lanning, and if you are not familiar with him, I think that it's important to discuss him in the context of the crimes that we are discussing. And thank you so much, Annie Kurtz, for the super sticker or super chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. Stop it. And hi, Nathan Ward. Um, I think that it is incredibly important to consider the role that people like Kenneth Lanning played in regards to like occult crimes. Seriously. Because these are the people that train police. You know what I mean? They kind of set the rule book up, so to speak. And you're going to see his take. We're going to read from a couple of different places. And maybe if you guys are patient with me, I will try one more time to hunt down that report. Because, like I said, I highlighted stuff because guess who's quoted in it? Richard Offshee and Margaret Singer of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation Scientific Advisory Board. So, isn't that fascinating? And hi, P. Thomas. I did check recents, but we're gonna run my OG intro, my really old one, guys, because we haven't run it in a while. But it is so appropriate, and wow, this was like my first like major schizo clip, so it's definitely like a little dive back in time. But here we go.
Your falling face first in the ground. Don't wanna think, but I see you. A faded place, a love I found. How you're so far in my dreams too. I can't change your past. Could you hear me laugh more? I can't change your path. Will you stay one last song?
Have you ever met a guy like me? Have you ever met a man with a plan like me? Have you ever seen someone turn under someone who got the world tucked up in their hand like me? I can never change my faith, I can never hold hands, give God my grace. I can never not cry when I see your face. You say I got a lot on my plate, girl, I see that. 100 mil in the safe, no I need that. See a smile on your face, yeah I need that. No, I'm trying to get the cake that can take me to the place that'll make me feel safe, I don't need that. Tell me about the way you felt, I can tell you about the things that I said myself. I got a lot of things sitting on my shelf.
Okay, it froze on my end. So did it freeze on y'all's? Because that sucks. And now I know that I'm literally out here fighting demons. If it didn't freeze on your end, then that's beautiful. But for some reason, yeah, it worked. Okay, beautiful. Love it. As long as it works for you guys, that's all I care about. So, let me go ahead and pull up. I love it. All right, good. As long as you guys can see it, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant as far as like I'm concerned. So, God, it makes me so mad that I cannot find this stupid report. But I'm going to show you guys something just to kind of set the tone as far as Mr. Kenneth Lanning, okay? So he's like the FBI occult expert, whatever the case, you know what I mean? Once again, I am flipped around. Well, let's see if I can flip it the other way. Hold on, because that drives me nuts when I'm watching it. So, let's see if this fixes it, eh? Hold on. I'm going to hit the refresh. BRB, guys. Here we go. Hold on. Hi. Am I back? Am I good? Am I gravy, baby? Goodness gracious. Restream is not liking me today. So, whatever. Now, I am going to show you guys. Hi, Eric G. Hello, hello. And did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. Hi, Racine. I am gravy, baby. Thank you so much, Mr. Crow. And hi, Robert Gilman, gravy. All right, I love it. Thanks, guys. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up this just so you can get an idea of who this fellow is. So, this is from the National Training Center. This is from October of 2011. So, compliant child victims confronting an uncomfortable reality. Presenter Kenneth V. Lanning, retired FBI agent at this time. This is going to be graphic, so TMI, I would assume that people would understand that, but that's why the thumbnail was what it was. But sorry. The sexual victimization of children by adults varies greatly in the methods used to access and control the child victims, the ages and behavior patterns of the child victims, and the type, frequency, and duration of the sexual activity. The fact that the media and society often does not understand this diversity is unfortunate. The fact that many trained professional interveners do not recognize this diversity can have more significant consequences. The reason we protect children and do not recognize their consent to do that with adults is not because they meet some stereotypical expectation of innocence, but because they are developmentally immature, brain development, cognitive decision making, judgment. Children should not be held to idealistic or superhuman standards of behavior that deny their humanity and distort their victimization. So, that is your resident FBI expert talking about how it's uncomfortable that there are compliant child victims in these situations. Yeah, that's real crazy to me. This dude is a major scumbag. Now, give me 2 seconds. Let me see if I can find this damn file because this is making me very mad. And it should have been in my recent files, as someone else pointed out, but I don't know where it went. It seems as though it is literally gone, which makes me very angry, but whatever, it is what it is. We're just gonna get through it. Oh, hey, here it is. All right, beautiful. So, buckle up. We're going to be reading, and no, I'm not going to read all of it, but we're going to go through some of it. So, this is the official report. Oficial, okay? This is the tone that is being set on how police handle these types of crimes. And why is this relevant? I'm not going to talk about all of this stuff today, but I'm sure that many of you are aware of the latest statement that was released by Mrs. Wheat Carr and the veiled insinuation of litigation against me. Okay? I think it's important to consider, in the context of the investigation of the Son of Sam, the way that the entire thing was handled, because I'm not going to shut up and I'm not going anywhere. Trust me. And do your worst. I literally don't care. However, I want to set it up so that people understand where law enforcement is coming from. Because do we have to go back and look at that couple that was drained of their blood? All of the other really crazy stuff? Because I'm going to show you guys this fascinating newspaper clipping that I found. And this reporter really went for it as far as what went on with Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, but this is specifically talking about Leonard Lake. I'll pull it up on my Twitter because the FBI's perspective is that snuff isn't real. Not real, doesn't exist, it's not a thing, right? Okay. They also deny the existence of ritual abuse. That's really crazy to me. And this says that it's an unbiased report and that they bring in experts from both sides. Well, I would agree with the expert opinions, not all of them, but specifically, I think I think her name is like Sandra Galanti. I could be wrong. We're going to see her name. However, she understands that these crimes are very real because people need to remember we went through those articles showing every single report of animals being sacrificed, animals being, ritually sacrificed, people talking about human sacrifices. And we also talked about that in some of the Ed Sanders files specifically. So this stuff is not irrelevant, but the police aren't on like our side. And I'm not making a blanket statement. I'm just saying we need to set the tone to be realistic. And hello, Lazarus, Leonard Lake's neighbor, Timothy Zeal, Moira Grayland, has some interesting things to say about Zell and the other neo pagan celebrities at the time out there. Yeah, I bet. I bet. Because what? Like the missing neighbors, like the car was found on their property. Like the whole Leonard Lake thing, and just like it's the audacity of this man for me. So I may get a little bit laggy, guys. So please let me know. But we need to go through this document so you can see your tax dollars hard at work, baby. This is the federal government. Yeah. These are the people that are supposed to protect your children. So this is the Office of Criminal Justice Planning Research Update, Special Edition, winter of 89 and 90. And here we go, and blah, 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 blah. Again, not reading through all of this. However, occult crime, a law enforcement primer. And right here. So this is giving an introduction. There she is, Sandy Gallant. I totally screwed that up. Okay. But they cite her as an expert, a veteran occult cop of the San Francisco PD. And she adamantly insists that investigators must shed their personal and religious prejudices when they deal with the occult, lest they tread upon the foundations of the First Amendment. I don't disagree with her whatsoever, but she has some very interesting observations that I agree with her about. Because again, this says over and over that it's not bias, blah, 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 blah. And I would say, yes, it is. Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and read like, this is how we do it, the methodology, blah, blah, blah. However, here we go. The problem. If you ask the small but experienced group of occult investigators who have worked the occult crime beat throughout the 1980s, most will agree that both occult activity and occult crime are problems for law enforcers across the nation. But that is about all they will agree upon. Disagreement abounds over a myriad of issues surrounding the occult, the first and foremost being the extent of occult crime. Many law enforcers argue that occult criminal activity is widespread and warrants further law enforcement resources. Others submit that while people perceive the existence of occult crime, in reality, very little is actually committed. Thus, the real issue law enforcers must face today is not proving or disproving the extent of occult crime. Instead, law enforcers must deal with the fact that a growing segment of the American population perceives occult activity and occult crime are major problems in society, and this concerned public expects law enforcers to do something about it. Like it or not, law enforcers will increasingly be drawn into the world of the occult. Dun dun dun. Now, this breaks it down into three categories: occult activity, satanic activity, and then ritualistic activity. I think that it is very important in the definition that they use of ritualistic, repeated physical, sexual, psychological, and or spiritual acts. Adding in the other elements is a different part. But this, to me, includes any sort of abuse of any of this nature, especially against kids. And I know the ex-Scientologists are going to come on and say that I'm QAnon adjacent. Blah, 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 blah. Bite me. I don't care. Now, I do think that this is fascinating that they are talking to the Cult Awareness Network based out of Chicago. I do not care. They do cite, interestingly enough, Maury Terry's investigation of the Son of Sam shootings. It says that such claims were refuted. Okay, whatever you say. Consider the following. A spokesperson for the FBI refuted the allegations of the Utah State Prison official, pointing to annual UCR statistics that show the nationwide rate of all homicides averages about 20,000. Can's reports of satanic activity are not substantiated, nor are they positively linked to any criminal activity. Okay. A study conducted by the Committee for the Scientific Examination of Religion found that in the last 5 years, only about 60 of the more than 1 million violent crimes committed in the U.S. had satanic overtones. The study's director noted the committee found no evidence of any local, statewide, or national conspiracy, and the perpetrators of satanic crime were largely mentally ill. While the debate continues, only one thing remains certain. No one knows the actual extent of occult crime! Exclamation point. Most information is largely perceptual, often based upon misinformation and fear, the experiences and assumptions of occult investigators, and unsubstantiated research conducted by persons who have spiritual, social, and or economic reasons to believe that occult crime exists. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah? Oh, Echo Cat, thank you so much. You're the sweetest. Thank you. Let me see. Occult crime doesn't exist. Pay no attention to the cartel altar to the devil, complete with human sacrifice. Yes, absolutely. And hello, Boxing Bosocks. Hello, hello. And hi, Jandon. So glad that you're here. They call anything that makes them uncomfortable OSA or Q. Yeah, well, they sure do. They sure do. But seems like things aren't panning out within the X community the way that they thought that it was going to. So that's quite unfortunate for them. But quite frankly, I don't care. Now, I'm going to show you guys, because I highlighted the names that are interesting to me, who are the experts or the contributors to this law enforcement primer. And no, we're not going to look at all of them, but guess who we have? Guess who we have? Oh, we've got him, baby. So we've got J. Gordon Melton. He is sus AF. We have Mr. Richard Offshee. That's right, Richard Offshee of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation Scientific Advisory Board. We have the FBI sus lord himself, Kenneth V. Lanning, and Margaret Thaler Singer, again of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation Board, who was also complicit in the torture of the repatriated POWs. Yeah, the brainwashing expert. Yeah, she's a criminal in my opinion, but she's dead, so who really cares? So here is chapter 1. This is just really going through the history, and obviously, look, there's Offshee and Singer. Isn't it silly that they sued the APA because people were calling them out on their bullshit? And excuse my language, but it is bullshit. But people were calling them out, and they're like, "You're trying to take away our expert witness status." Y'all's expert witness testimony got thrown out every single time. Literally every single time. Sorry if this is making anyone dizzy. Now, I did highlight this because I want to come back to it because I've had some people mention that there's some real sus stuff going on in Minnesota and has been for quite some time. So there was a Council of American Witches, and that was occurring in Minnesota in the early 70s. It's said here that it has since disbanded, but many American witches adhere to its principles. I'm going to be looking into these people because, ooh, that timing, baby. That timing is everything, isn't it? So we're going to keep going because we're not going to sit here and learn about all of this If you would like, I will put the link in the description because I'm trying to get better about updating them. I think I've updated 3 so far, so look at me. I'm an adult. Let me make this smaller because I know that if I was watching someone do this, it would make me very dizzy. I apologize. Oh, I had to highlight this because look, it's Michael Aquino. They're talking about the Temple of Set. Founded in 1975 by a dissident member of the Church of Satan, Michael Aquino, the Temple of Set is the second largest of all contemporary organized satanic churches. The Temple of Set is a religious society dedicated to Set, the ancient Egyptian god believed by some to be the model for the Christian Satan. I think that someday I am going to come on here and we are going to actually read some of the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino's book. What is it? We Live by the Sword. I think that that's what it's called. And it's basically what would happen if the Nazis just changed everybody's minds, then everything would be great. So that's real crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, people know some things about Aquino. A lot of people like specifically focus on Aquino because of like the QAnon stuff. And I'm like, don't care. Don't care. That's irrelevant to me. I don't, whatever. Because people have asked me, and I don't know because I don't pay attention to Q. But the whole like Flynn thing with Aquino and Q, I've already told you guys. A, politics isn't real. Q, that's a legitimate psychological operation. That's what I would call a psyop. I think that the term psyop is overused, and it is. Words have meaning. I'm not trying to censor anybody, but the word is overused. But I've already told you guys my conspiracy theory about that, and I don't want to derail since I had so many issues getting this set up. Now, come on, baby. Where are we? All right, so we're going to chapter 2. Because, I mean, these people, they're full of crap. He's full of crap. He's completely full of crap. Let me see. And wait, what are we praying for? Corn Diff Dana live stream. I don't know what we would talk about. Corn like makes cool stuff, and his voice is very soothing, but I don't know. Let me see. No evidence of these. Yeah, the clown and the Candyman, the Oakland County child killer, Franklin scandal. Oh, I've got stuff. We're going to be reading a little bit from the Franklin cover up. We're also going to be reading a little bit from Program to Kill. We Break the Sword. Thank you so much, Soil Lodge. That is the book by Aquino. We Break the Sword. Yeah, it's really crazy the lengths that he goes. But he was a Nazi and he was a Nazi sympathizer, and I covered that stuff. They were doing black magic rituals in Himmler's Hall of the Dead while he was with the Joint Chiefs of Staff when they were expanding NATO. So, I've asked people to maybe consider that some of the things that have gone on with NATO as of late is the result of black magic rituals that were being done with Michael Aquino and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I showed you guys some of that report. Like, that's nuts. But people think that this stuff is normal because we got to have like a religious freedom, right? Like, okay, fine. You want to risk it? Go for it. Risk it for the biscuit. So here we go. Chapter 2. Defining occult crime, the perpetrators, their actions, and the victims. And again, not going through all of this, but occult crime encompasses ceremonial actions and or ritualistic acts, involves occult-related behavior patterns, and is motivated by a belief in some occult ideology. And right here, let's make this real big so people can see. In the law enforcement circles today, occult crime is a hotly debated topic, not just because such criminal activities involve belief systems diametrically opposed by many Americans and are allegedly heinous in nature, but because few law enforcers agree on the extent of occult crime, the motives of perpetrators, the types of crimes perpetrated by occultists, or the veracity of adults and children who claim they are victims of occult crime, especially ritualistic abuse. And it says this repeatedly in each chapter, that this chapter is shedding light on these debates, and in doing so, it's not taking sides, but rather seeks to provide an objective forum for continuing such debates. Okay, whatever. I would highly disagree. But right here, so this is talking about, where all these occult religions go bad is when people aren't set to live within the environment they have created. It's not enough to have power over themselves. They want to control the heavens and each other. As the need for more power grows, occult crime increases. It attracts people who aren't satisfied. They want more power. The more powerful you are, the more power you have power over, and the more powerful you become in turn. I've told you guys in regards to satanic ritual abuse and ritual abuse specifically, uh, that type of stuff is about it's the taking away of innocence. That is the ultimate power. It is wicked, but it is the ultimate power. And down here, this is just completely freaking ridiculous to me. So dabbling in occult stuff involves people who are intermittently and experimentally involved in occult activities, while dabbling in supernatural belief systems involves non-criminal activity, which stems from a vague, curious interest. Some dabbling involves intense preoccupation that culminates in criminal behavior. Such perpetrators most often act alone or in small, loosely organized groups. Dabblers usually make up their own belief system based upon some occult ideology and perpetrate criminal activity that conforms to that ideology. That is literally the biggest load of shit. That's not true. That's not true. Sorry guys, I might swear a little bit more, but whatever. Right here, ritualism involves people who commit criminal activities characterized by a series of repeated physical, sexual, and or psychological assaults combined with a systematic use of symbols, ceremonies, and or machinations. And that quote that I had read up there was from Cleo Wilson of the Denver PD. Those who commit crimes for logically evil purposes are occult practitioners who must commit heinous crimes to obey the requirements of their particular belief system. They are usually manipulators who derive personal power from controlling others. Their occult spirituality gives them such power. Yeah? That seems a lot more accurate to me. If they want to sit here and kind of play word games, like, well, it's theologically evil. Duh, 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 duh. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But here we have again. Trolls are persons who use the occult as an excuse to justify or rationalize their criminal behavior. They act individually or within occult groups, which can and do act as a social binding mechanism for some people to do what they want to do. True criminals both dabble with the occult and are involved in rituals that fit their particular physical, sexual, psychological, social, economic, and or spiritual needs. They are committed not to the belief system, but to the criminal action. Some law enforcement agencies call these occult criminals predatory and psychopathic ritualists. Predatory ritualists commit ritualistic crime because they crave power, financial gain, and or sexual gratification. Perpetrators most often prey upon certain victims, especially children, and use them for a wide array of sexual and economic means. An example of a predatory ritualistic criminal is the child sex ring organizer. Do you hear the words coming out of my mouth? And I'm sorry if I'm being loud. He just said it himself. And people may not like that, and they may think that like it's an oversimplification or whatever. The hell it is. Because if that crime in particular was looked at that way and then considered in the grand scheme of things that maybe there's a cult going on, right? And then it's not just one person. But oh no, it's always just one person, right? Or maybe it's two people, like Leonard Lake and Charles Ink, because snuff films don't exist, right? That's not real. That's like a really crazy conspiracy theory that's put out here by conservatives and paranoid people. Okay, whatever you say. Uh the people that deny these type of things, I will just say flat out, I think that they are dangerous people. I also think that they are walking red flags, but this is just my opinion. Let me see. I want to know who wrote this. So I will put this into my description section. So this was like the FBI's report, I believe, for the state of California at the time. But you can look and see, and Kenneth Lanning, because I'm going to show you guys some other stuff, because he's cited in a couple court cases, obviously, expert testimony, whatever. But this is what was used a lot to train these police departments. This is what they're basing things off of. And think about the time of this. This is what they said, like 88 to 90, something like that. Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, that already happened. That already happened. And I don't care what people think about what Charles Manson said. I know he said crazy things, but there was a consistency of Charles Manson, Bobby Beausoleil, a couple of the girls of the family, and they're all Processians. We've provided plenty of evidence for that. So I won't debate that with people. I understand that Manson wasn't Scientology, but the process is Scientology. It's just the dark mirror. However, there was a lot of talk of those types of films. A lot. I've read some of them to you on here in their own words. So this whole thing is just a load of crap, and Kenneth Lanning is lying. He is lying. Why? I don't know. What did Arnie Lerma say when we read from his blog about Michael Vale Carr being given the end of life cycle order to take his life? It's a sure story so that the police don't investigate, right? I would agree. Let me see. Hi, Jane in Scotland. Hi, hi, hi. And let me see. Wonder if that was written when Gunderson was still there. Well, hi, Pete Jensen. Hello, hello. The water boy. Who's the water boy? I don't get the joke. I'm sorry. So as far as Gunderson goes, Gunderson is a complicated character, man. As is often the case, people can observe truths and still serve as a disinformation agent. And it's interesting because when I was on William Ramsey, someone was looking for Gunderson's files because apparently Gunderson has an archive. I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff in there. But we'll bring that up when I pull up I think it's in Program to Kill is where that would be a little bit more relevant. So yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit, absolutely, because that's a great question. That is a great question. So right here, certain occult groups, however, that's the audacity of this man, you guys. Certain groups, however, are rarely ever linked as a group to occult crime. What? Okay. In particular, the law enforcement officials contacted for this study stated that very few, if any, of the neo-pagan or Wiccan groups with whom they were familiar were involved in criminal activity directly related to their particular belief systems. The occult group law enforcers target as most prone to possible criminal involvement are Santeria, Palomayombe, and Satanism. This does not mean these groups are actually involved in criminal activity, but rather that some evidence does exist. It does exist. Of course, they're not going to be specific about it, just like the damn tapes with Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, to link them to certain activities. Yeah? It's always wording with these people, guys. Always the wording. Now, let's keep going. So, the crimes. Here we go. Just What are the crimes, both proven and assumed, most often linked to occultists? In general, law enforcers assume that several specific crimes have definite occult linkages: trespassing, vandalism, theft, graffiti, arson, animal sacrifice, and extortion. For the purposes of this study, such actions, referred to as generally agreed upon crimes with assumed occult links. There is a second category whose assumed links to crimes are either supported or denied by law enforcers. Denied: suicide, kidnapping, murder, human sacrifice, and ritualistic abuse. They are referred to as crimes of debate. Yeah? Now, vandalism, cemetery desecration, trespassing, and this example that they provide as a rumor or reality, when you actually read it, seems like it's not as cut and dry because of the difference in the report a day later and that the person's not identified. So we're going to read this, okay? So, rumor or reality. The following article appeared in the July 28th, 89 issue of the Pantagraph, a Pontiac, Illinois local paper. So, goat near Pontiac, possibly a sacrifice. A mutilated goat was found in a river near Pontiac that was probably the victim of satanic activity, the sheriff's police said yesterday. The 50-pound male goat was found Wednesday in the river after the county veterinarian received an anonymous tip. The goat, which had been dead for 3 to 4 days, was castrated and the horns were cut off, adding that small animal sacrifice is common among devil worshippers. However, no indications of satanic worship were found near the goat, and police said there was no indication that the animal was killed in said county. Although both county and city police have received reports of satanic meetings, rituals, and animal sacrifices, little evidence has supported these reports. And on the very next day, goat killed in dog attack. German shepherds, not devil worshippers, were responsible for the mutilation of a goat found Wednesday in the river near Pontiac. A McLean County resident, whom they will not identify, stated that he dumped the goat in the river. The man was he contacted the police after reading news stories that authorities believed the animal was sacrificed by members of a satanic cult. Police originally believed the goat was castrated and had its horns cut off by Satanists who often sacrifice small animals. However, the cops said that the goat was injured when the dogs attacked and its horns had previously been removed. That sounds like a load of shit to me. You know what it sounds like to me? Somebody was going to go ahead and just come in and say that this is what happened. Sounds very unspecific. Doesn't sound realistic at all. However, I'm not telling anybody what to think. However, this drives me nuts. They think that people are stupid. They're saying that both county and city cops are getting reports of satanic meetings, rituals, and animal sacrifices, but little evidence. We're not getting a lot of evidence. Then why are you taking the damn reports if you don't care? Just say that you don't care. But isn't it convenient that the following day, an anonymous resident comes up with this fantastic story that's very convenient for you guys to not have to actually investigate the reports? Just my 2 cents. Moving on. So, other crimes that they agree upon, graffiti, arson, animal sacrifice. They don't deny it. And obviously, they kind of detail in, like Santeria, that it is not for human consumption. I don't really know what that has to do with anything. They go into a lot of weird detail about that, and that's not necessarily the hill that like I would die on. And here, let's see. So, extortion, sure, obviously, people are going to be extorted, right? That makes sense. Think Epstein, think, I don't know, any other sort of nasty, pedophilic, or satanic or ritualistic type of crime, because we are using their definition of what is ritualistic, which would mean that if you're some asshole running a like child pornography or a child abuse ring, which do exist, then that is a ritual abuse. That is ritual abuse, period. But here we go. So some examples that they give, that these are hotly debated. So obviously the uncomfortable topic of suicide, and it's as an example, and I think this is really interesting. Officer Boyle cited a suicide that occurred in Montgomery County on November 12, 1988. Two girls, aged 12 and 13, took their lives in a pact. Both had a history of emotional problems, drug involvement, and alleged interest in Satanism. The girls allegedly told several school friends they wanted to die so they could meet Satan. Drugs apparently were not involved. Whether Satanism was the motivation remains unknown. Well, aren't we supposed to take people at their word? You're the cops. If this is your report, and I understand they're very young, and this is tragic, but that should have been invested. All right. So, kidnapping. Yeah, kidnapping people of all ages, but especially children, is thought to be a prevalent crime among some occult practitioners. Especially accused are traditional cult Satanists who are said to kidnap victims needed for ritual sacrifice, self styled juvenile Satanists whose dabbling has taken them to the point of no return, and mayomberos whose rituals require a human skull, often with the brain still attached. Yeah? How's that? It's pretty disgusting. But you want to practice your religious rights, right? Yeah? You want to have your religious freedom? Okay, so do the children of God. Hey, Brad Conley, I'm so glad that you're here. And hi, Amy Lane. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. Glad that you could catch the live. They won't investigate themselves. And if they did, can you really trust them to rat on themselves? Hell no. Hell no. That's like asking like Trump or like the Clintons to investigate themselves. Okay. That's why people get unalived and they're like hanging from a tree in a pecan field in Georgia with 2 gunshots. It is ruled a suicide. Okay. Let me see. The sacrifice is for their deity, not for humans. Hey, Jack. Hello. I'm so glad that you're here. Change the nomenclature to fit the narrative. That is absolutely right. Well, can't trust them cops when they rule all these people that got Arkancited. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, Mina. Yeah, Arkansas is the Clintons. That's absolutely right. Palo Mayombe ain't so bad, just some minor grave robbing. The cover up is absolutely worse than the crime. Yeah, they can have my migraine. Yeah, they could have mine too, quite frankly. Uh yeah, eventually someday, and this is someday, because it's like a delicate topic, but this is just a weird thing that I researched like a long time ago. Is the Yoruba tribe. I did like a personal journey through all of that. It'll be a delicate topic, but it's really fascinating because the 3 founding members of a very well-known activist group that was involved in some things over the past couple years that involved a lot of public property being destroyed. Yeah. The founders were practitioners of the Yoruba tribe, and it is very, very fascinating. Just to kind of take a look at another culture and the things that they engage in, but also from that perspective, it kind of makes what they were doing and saying and the way that they were behaving make a lot of sense because they say that that's what they were doing in the streets, telling people to repeat certain things like certain names. I'm not kidding. I did a really deep dive on that on my own, and it's real wild. So let's get back to this. Perhaps the most infamous recent case of kidnapping was one allegedly perpetrated for the purposes of ritual sacrifice. April 1989, the Matamoros case. A young American University of Texas student, Mark Kilroy, and several Mexican citizens were kidnapped and later ritualistically killed. And I think that goes to the next page. Hold on. Yep. Sacrificed by drug dealer and mayombero. Adolfo de Jesus Costanzos. After the media attention and accusations of Satanism died down, the facts pointed to Costanzos' individual and psychopathic involvement in Palo Mayombe. In essence, it appears that one person used that cult and the resulting sacrifice to convince his workers in the drug dealing trade that they would be protected in their illegal endeavors. Now, I'm not saying that that's not true, but the audacity of them to basically say that it's one person convincing a massive group of people to ritualistically murder a bunch of people. No, this is a cult. This is a cult doing cult murder. All right, so let's keep going. Murder and human sacrifice. Obviously, they pretty much completely deny that. And here, obviously, with ritualistic abuse, what do they open up with? They open up with the publication of Michelle Remembers. Now, I'm not here to talk about that because people get real weird about it. I don't care about Michelle Remembers whatsoever. I will be completely honest with you guys. I have not read it, and here's why. Because I know that there's a lot of controversy around it, and that's fine. However, just like Geraldo and Oprah bringing on Michael Aquino, bringing on Anton LaVey, Anton LaVey's daughter, bringing on other people during this time, I've expressed my opinion. I think that the media got their barking orders. And quite frankly, I think that Geraldo and Oprah were helping them recruit people. They were giving people like Michael Aquino and Anton LaVey, they were giving them a platform. They weren't it's oh, what is it like? The devil's underground, Satan's underground. It's very dramatic and it's fun. And that's where a lot of those clips came from. And it's a step back into yesteryear, right? But they were not, I don't believe that they were doing it for the reasons that they said. They sensationalized it and made it so dramatic for a reason. And it did feed into the hype. And quite frankly, I think that it just helped them recruit. I really do. That's my personal opinion. That's how I've felt ever since I've found those episodes. And again, Subliminal Jihad, best podcast out there, at least one of the best podcasts. That is where I learned about the late Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. And I think that I have it in my community section somewhere. I know that I posted it quite some time ago. Now, let me see. I know that I highlighted some stuff here about the ritualistic abuse. Now, give me 1 second. Because maybe I didn't highlight the whole thing because I would have ended up highlighting it, but okay. We're going to read a little bit about the ritualistic abuse because I want you guys to mostly focus on what Kenneth Lanning said because the audacity of this man is disgusting. It is disgusting. And hello, Longevity Rituals. Michael is in a new body now. Hi, Sneaky Pete. Hello, hello. And sick of deniers, just like toxic mold. I agree. Yeah, I agree. They are. They're literally just denying factual history at this point. So, tell me you just don't want to know. You know what I mean? In the broadest sense, ritualistic abuse of children, adolescents, and adults involves repeated physical, sexual, psychological, and or spiritual abuse which utilizes rituals. Okay. Ritual abuse rarely consists of a single episode. It usually involves abuse over an extended period of time. It is severe, sometimes including torture and killing. The sexual abuse is unusually painful, sadistic, and humiliating, intended as a means of gaining dominance over the victim. The psychological abuse is devastating and involves the use of ritual or indoctrination, which includes mind control techniques and mind-altering drugs, and ritual or intimidation, which conveys to the victim a profound terror of the cult members and of the evil spirits they believe the cult members can command. Both during and after the abuse, most victims are in a state of terror. mind control, and dissociation, in which disclosure is exceedingly difficult. That was the Los Angeles Commission on Women in 1989. So let's go over here to talk about the victims. Yeah. Not surprisingly, even the victims of occult crimes are subject to controversy. Such debate is hardly surprising in light of the fact that the types of occult crimes committed against people are also the subject of controversy. If the criminal justice community disagrees about the commission of suicide, kidnapping, sacrifice, and ritual abuse crimes that are actually a link to occult crime, it is natural to disagree upon whether or not the victims of such crimes actually exist. Yeah? Michael Carr, anyone? If we accept the belief that some number, be it large or small, of occult crime victims exist, then we are faced with a host of other issues. Who are they? If the victims survive the criminal action, what sort of symptoms will be evident? And perhaps most importantly, are there well trained therapists available to provide victims with assistance specifically designed to help them? And who are the victims? Obviously, this is talking about kidnapping, sacrifice, suicide, all of this. Yeah? Here we go. Ritualistic abuse. Children who are born into or are acquired by families with an occult centered belief system. Children who attend out of home daycare. And we're going to skip down because it keeps doing this. The little case studies and the legalese, blah, 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 blah. Recreational situations where the care and facilities are not routinely examined, children in out of home daycare and recreational situations who have low self-esteem and or whose parents have not taught or encouraged them to question adult authority, adolescents and adults who are kidnapped, adolescents or adults who are recruited and converted to an occult belief system. And the symptoms of these surviving victims, the shit that these professionals still deny to this very day, even though the science is out there. Whatever. It is what it is. The multiple personality disorder, a little understood phenomenon. Yeah. Says that the MPD is the essential feature of dissociative disorders, which are disturbances or alterations in the normally integrative functions of identity, memory, or consciousness. Further states that MPD sufferers may exhibit as many as 10 personalities and in some cases more than 200, in which the personalities and personality states each have unique memories, behavior patterns, and social relationships. MPD sufferers may also have a belief that they are possessed by another person or entity, a feeling that may also be a delusion in a psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia. Thus, the debate that surrounds this particular issue does not question the existence of some victims who have been ritually abused and consequently suffer from MPD, but rather whether the very nature of MPD makes the survivor's story credible in a court of law. In other words, can it prove hard evidence? As Robert Hicks, former police officer and currently criminal justice analyst for the Commonwealth of Virginia, warns law enforcers are faced with a series of paradoxes when dealing with MPD victims who are allegedly survivors of occult-related ritual abuse. Isn't that lovely? On the one hand, growing number of cult survivor stories and their sameness as evidence of the satanic underground. That is, people who have never met telling identical tales. People who have never met telling identical tales. Yet most MPD sufferers, usually young women, do not present verifiable stories. Maybe that's because you guys aren't investigating them. None has yielded physical evidence of crime other than physiological symptoms, which are part and parcel of MPD. Hypnosis for police purposes produces no results. MPD sufferers can take years to interview to ascertain even a few facts. For the law enforcer, then, the question is not can we believe the survivor's story. Indeed, the controversies, issue number 5, are not of paramount importance. Instead, the essential question asks, can we corroborate the survivor's story with hard evidence? Does anyone see the problem here in corroborating stories like this with hard evidence? Anybody? Bueller. If they are not taking the reports of cult activity, of occult criminality seriously, how the hell are they going to corroborate it? Seriously, I would like to know, how are you going to corroborate it? This is your outline, FBI. This is your work. How are you going to corroborate it if you guys are basically saying that it doesn't exist and it's pretty much the imagination of like these this morally struggling panic that just happened to occur all at once? Isn't that fascinating? Would it be because then that would show that you guys are involved in allowing these things to happen? Because a lot of this stuff does involve moving victims across state lines. Yeah? I don't know. Just postulating, guys. That's all I'm doing is just postulating. Now, I want to see, because obviously, like I said, we're not reading through the whole thing, but I think that there is a little bit more that I wanted to show you guys here. Yeah, this is it. This is what I want to show you guys, because this makes me want to pull my fucking hair out. Excuse my language. So, hypothesis. Ritualistic abuse is a widespread problem, which may even involve a national conspiracy. Advocates believe ritualistic abuse, especially committed against children, is at the very least a common occurrence in communities across the nation and at the very worst a national conspiracy of epidemic proportions. Yeah? Okay. Proponents believe such crimes continue to occur because Satanists are often well-respected politicians, doctors, attorneys, priests, ministers, daycare providers, and law enforcement who hide their heretical and criminal deeds behind a facade of professional respectability. Among the most heinous crimes they cite are rituals in which infants or small children are sacrificed and cannibalistic, sexual, and psychological rituals in which children are forced to participate. Proponents say physical evidence of such crimes are absent because the Satanists eat much of the flesh and have access to advanced disposal methods. The experience related by adult and child victims provide enough evidence of ritualistic abuse to validate its widespread and conspiratorial dimensions. Yeah? So, right here. Dr. Bennett Braun has personally worked with over 70 adults in 22 states with MPD and has conducted 2 recent studies on data from 40 states. He estimates that of the approximate 200,000 Americans, up to 1/4 or 50,000 could be victims of SRA. Psychiatrist Roland Summit, whose subspecialty is child sexual abuse, calls ritual abuse of children the most serious threat to children and to society that we must face in our lifetime. Dr. Lawrence Pazder, psychiatrist, describes the motives and pervasiveness of ritualized abusers who are normal looking and carry on normal lives. They are members of every strata of society, which they have carefully infiltrated. Any position of societal power or influence should be seen as a target for infiltration. The perpetrators have masses of money available. Many have impeccable credentials: doctors, ministers, professionals of every kind. And then obviously, they want to bring in the religious angle. The Satanists have infiltrated the system, the government, the law enforcement, the courts, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't negate everything else that we just read from doctors. That's facts. I think that they do this on purpose, and this is just my personal opinion. Jamie Carroll, author of an anthology of survivor experiences, helped conduct a survey of ritual abuse survivors in Canada and the US. By late 1988, the sponsoring agency Healing Hearts had received 85 responses. Additionally, throughout 88, while working on the book, 108 survivors and 303 professionals contacted the agency. Since 1998, she estimates that 10 professionals and 2 to 4 survivors continued to contact her every single month. Now, let's keep going because I'm not going to waste everyone's time and sit here all day. Let's see what the feds have to say. Kenneth Lanning, special agent at the FBI Academy, contributes a cautionary warning. Until hard evidence is obtained and corroborated, the American people should not be frightened into believing that babies are being eaten, that 50,000 missing children are being murdered in human sacrifices, or that Satanists are taking over America's daycare centers. No one can prove with absolute certainty that such activity does not exist. Maybe, Mr. Lanning, it's because you guys aren't doing your fucking job. Excuse my language. The burden of proof, however, as it would be in a criminal prosecution, is on those who claim that it has occurred. The burden of proof is on children. This is your FBI. This is your federal government. This is where your tax dollars are going. Seriously. The burden of proof is on the child. That is astounding to me. And it is astounding. However, as law enforcement agencies evaluate and decide what they can or should do about satanic and occult activity in their communities, they might also consider how to deal with the type and hysteria of the anti-Satanist. The overreaction to the problem can clearly be worse than the problem. An unjustified crusade against those perceived as Satanist could result in wasted resources, unwarranted damage to reputations, and disruption of civil liberties. Right here. Sociologist Jeffrey Victor's extensive study of a satanic cult said to be operating in Western New York found that the so-called cult had never existed and instead was the result of a rumor panic and economic self-aggrandizement. Rumor panics, he concludes, occur in small towns and rural areas due to collective anxieties caused by economic stress and family deterioration, affecting particularly young blue-collar families. The metaphorical language of the rumors tells the story of families whose world is falling apart and whose ideals are being threatened by evil forces. These underlying sources of stress are being inflamed by vested interests, which gain income, members, or audiences by exaggerating fears about satanic group activity. Did you just hear what that man said in this official FBI report? That ritual abuse, especially against children, it's not real. And it's because poor people are crazy and they can't cope with being poor. And so they have to come up with a moral panic. Wow. 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 Tell me that you don't give a fuck about victims without telling me. Seriously. This is insulting on so many levels. And whatever, you guys are like just going to have to give me a pass for tonight. This is like the topic that like got me on this channel. But I'm just saying, the audacity to sit there and say, well, it's because you're poor and you can't cope. So you're literally like creating demons. That's nuts. I don't understand why anybody, quite frankly, respects our federal law enforcement. I certainly don't whatsoever. Now, let's bring in the false memory folks, eh? Here we go. Here we go. And I'm going to wet my palate really quick. Bear with me. I might need a smoke and a pancake. Hold on. I'm going to hit my vape too. Sorry, guys. This has got me worked up. I haven't talked about this stuff in a hot minute. I forgot how mad I got. Whoo. Hold on. All right. So, Dr. Richard Offshee, douche, UC Berkeley sociology professor, provides expert testimony in occult and cult related cases across the nation. He claims many therapists come from a fundamentalist Christian perspective and are ideologically driven to find that their patient has been a survivor of satanic abuse. Through their suggestions, clients can unintentionally develop a whole new personality, an unremembered identity. I bet. Additionally, Offshee contends, some clients who are especially insecure will continue to tell their therapist about satanic abuse because they know that it's pleasing to their therapist. What? This dude. God. This dude. Victim blame much? Now, let's kind of look at this. Child victims of ritualistic crime, abuse, or indoctrinated. We're going to read a little bit of the left, okay? Hypothesis. Child survivors have been ritualistically abused by satanic groups. Proponents are vociferous in their support of the child victims, claiming that until children can be considered reliable, ritual abuse will continue to flourish. This makes sense because it's true. When you want to sit there and gaslight kids and call them liars, then no one's going to look into it, right? Right. So let's talk about the science. Dr. Roland Summit says there is no scientific support for the notion that children conjure up elaborate accounts of victimization to please their examiners. No logical basis for the presumption that children are so perceptive and so imaginative that they can take the cue from a question or an anatomically specific doll and then draw from the examiner's mind an explicit narrative of the most unheard of and exotic perversities, including patterns of adult behavior not only unknown to children, but to most clinicians as well. Any logical support for the indoctrination theory must explain how these exotic stories, unfamiliar even to the examiners, prove to match the best available knowledge of cults drawn from such diverse sources as ancient documents and the accounts of adult survivors of rituals practiced on an earlier generation of children. And if it were possible for examiners to cue children into false accounts, why would these examiners induce stories which they couldn't themselves believe and which they knew would be unbelievable to their supervisors? Huh? That is a damn good question. And this individual specifically has worked with over 100 individual child victims of multi-victim, multi-perpetrator situations, and over 200 individuals involved in therapy and support groups dealing with the same problem. She believes the problem is widespread, although not prevalent in every community, and that children must be believed because of the nature of their disclosures and their effect, particularly the level of ongoing fear that is found in these children. While there is little physical evidence, a great deal of emotional evidence exists that matches the disclosure content. That could be debated when we're talking about, what was it? The Presidio, West Point, very much so, because West Point is extremely graphic. Joy Byers, the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse, told a journalist recently that children don't have the expertise that would give them the knowledge that they could make up these stories of these specific acts. And over here, hypothesis. Children claim they have been ritualistically abused by satanic groups, have been indoctrinated by untrained and or overzealous therapists and through media accounts. Proponents believe the children have been misled by emotionally involved therapists or by unsubstantiated urban legends passed down through the media. These proponents aim much of their criticism at the therapeutic community, claiming not that therapists are incompetent, but that they are either untrained or too biased to treat children who are allegedly ritualistically abused. Kenneth Lanning of the FBI feels many therapists have not had experience with severely traumatized children or those abused by multiple offenders who threatened them with violence or death to control them. Some tend not to be very objective. They are too emotionally involved. Further, because of the lack of well researched materials on the topic, therapists use manuals written by law enforcement officers, which are too often full of inaccuracies, perceptions, and opinions rather than facts. And Lee Coleman believes some children are literally being trained by professionals to believe that they have been molested. Children seldom lie about such things, but they may be manipulated by adults into believing things that have never happened. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't know how much more of this I can read. Let me see. Did anything else astute? Bear with me. I don't care. I don't even think that Margaret Sanger really said too much. So I think that maybe we'll just leave this at that because it's like a 60-page report. It is what it is. That's Kenneth Lanning. That's your FBI. I'm going to drop this in here. This is the Wiki Commons specifically. There you go. That way you guys have it. That is the is that the full report? That might be a different report. Oh no, this is the Investigator's Guide to Allegations of Ritual Child Abuse. So this is actually a different report. But this is what they conclude from the report that we just read. Because I think that people who want to sit here and chime in about cults and about cult activity, do your homework. Do your homework. Because I'm stepping back as we have before, and I'm showing people the other actors that are coming in and are contributing to the problem. And that's the federal government. Yeah? Now, let me see. And, we're going to go to Program to Kill, baby. We're going to go to PTK. Hold on. Because you know I love my PTK. And I'm not here to talk about McMartin. Don't want to hear it. Anybody who says that they are an expert about the McMartin trial, they're lying. They're lying. And I will say that. I will call them a liar. Because the book about McMartin, it was a professor. I don't remember which college he taught out of. It took him 18 years. And he sent his students out all over the country to get all of these archive files. And that book just came out, I think, like a year and a half ago. Maybe a year ago. There's an interview on... Nick Bryant. There's an interview with him on Nick Bryant's podcast. The narrative around McMartin is so complicated and so complex, and it is not what people think that it is. However, of course, Kenneth Lanning has to chime in, right? Because this is right up his alley, baby. So let's go ahead and take a peek at Program to Kill. And the chapter is titled McMolestation. So, right here. A glimpse of the true nature and scale of the McMartin case is offered by an official correspondence from Sergeant Beth Dickerson of the LA County Sheriff's Department to Agent Kenneth Lanning at the FBI Academy's Behavioral Sciences Unit in Quantico, dated February 10th, 1985. In August of 1983, the Manhattan Beach Police Department began an investigation regarding allegations of sexual abuse occurring at the McMartin preschool. Altogether, approximately 400 children were evaluated by therapists at Children's Institute International. All interviews were videotaped. 350 disclosed this type of behavior. I'm not going to sit here and read all of this because this is really, really bad, and I really don't want to. I don't want to. I'm sorry. It's very, very dark. But here, they notify him, and some of those things did happen. Not all of them, but some of them did. Got to take the emotion out of it, guys. You have to. You just have to. And I know that it's tough, okay? But it is what it is. And right here, he notes again the behavioral science unit's resident ritual abuse denier, Kenneth Lanning. Kenneth Lanning urged Danny Rowling to publicly take credit for the Gainesville murders. Why? Why would he do a thing like that? Why would Kenneth Lanning do a thing like that? And I understand I'm jumping around a little bit. That's fine. Kenneth Lanning is a complicated man. Okay? So is Ted Gunderson. But I always think that there are people warring both sides against the middle. However, I encourage people to read that book, Programmed to Kill. I think that he did not have access to all the information that he needed. But I have stated previously, I have had victims of some of those internet rings reach out to me for my Instagram series, and I'm not taking credit for it. Dave McGowan deserves the credit, and anybody who wants to come on here and disrespect him, shame on you. Go tell those victims that they're liars. Seriously, shame on you. Because I've had victims reach out to me and they're like, who the hell wrote that book? They're like, who the hell wrote that book? Who's talking about my case? Who's talking about Wonderland? Wonderland. You know what? Maybe I will bring it back up and we'll read it. We'll read the part about Wonderland because it's absolutely horrific. However, I want to read really quick from the Franklin cover-up, so not the Franklin scandal, because obviously he is cited in here as well. But we're just going to read a really quick peek. So, the Tribune cited Kenneth Lanning, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's expert on occult crime, on the virtual non-existence of ritualistic abuse. Lanning, who has publicized his opinion that more people have been killed in the name of Jesus and Muhammad than in the name of Satan, said on this occasion that there had been only one criminal conviction stemming from charges of satanic ritual abuse in the United States. Yeah? Okay. Just one? Just one? Just one? It's because these people don't believe you. They think that everyone's lying. And it's not that I think specifically that people don't lie. I know that people lie. And I know that things are complicated, guys. Things are never black and white. But the reality of the situation is, and it is the reality of it, and I'm not going to hear it otherwise. You can't sit there and say that these types of crimes don't exist, as Mr. Lanning has insinuated, and that report, quite frankly, that report does conclude that, yeah? But then he wants to sit there and identify ritualistic abuse of children as continued methodical X, Y, and Z. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does this make sense? Does that make sense that that man said in the beginning of the report that someone operating a child abuse ring, a, child sexual abuse material ring, but then he says that snuff doesn't exist. And then he says that ritualistic abuse doesn't exist, that there's no proof of it. He literally is contradicting himself, and no one fights him on it. I'm not saying that there are not people at lower levels who are, in the grand scheme of things, their role or their power that they wield makes them impotent. But no one in power questions him. And this man has been so pivotal in dictating the way that stuff like this is actually handled. And so this is why stuff like the Son of Sam is made to be like real crazy, and people think that they are fully justified in coming on and being super disrespectful to everyone, saying that the whole cult idea is just completely crazy. You've just read from the FBI expert themselves that they don't believe it, even though the police are reporting that this stuff is out there. Yeah? So, Here's what we're going to do. I didn't want to do it, but we're going to drive the point home because I think that this is like pretty much where I'm going to end off on this. I am going to read this portion of PTK. Buckle it up. Buckle the fuck up. I am going to read this portion of PTK where a victim of this ring specifically, and they showed me stuff. They're an activist now. They have a Rumble channel. They said, please look at my stuff. Don't feel obligated, but please tell me who wrote that book because no one's ever talked about my story before. A victim of this ring. This is real. Whether people want to deny it or not, and according to Kenneth Lanning, this would be literally ritual abuse. Now, this is titled, this section of his book, Programmed to Kill. It is the opening, but he had a blog series on his website, Center for an Informed America. This is where it started. And it was broken down into, I think, 4 sections. And he calls it the pedopocracy. Take that as you will. I think that it is a very powerful word, a very haunting word. But Dave McGowan was right. So here we go. Buckle it up. In September 1998, another ring had been raided, one that the BBC described as a larger and more sinister pedophile network called Wonderland. The San Jose Mercury News, yes, that is the same San Jose Mercury News that the late Gary Webb, who exposed Iran-Contra and lost his life over it, worked at. They reported police in 22 states, 13 foreign countries conducted coordinated raids aimed at breaking up an internet child pornography ring. The ring involves as many as 200 people around the world who exchanged over the internet thousands of sexually explicit images of children as young as 18 months. The Independent later reported that the ring shared pictures of children being abused, in some cases live via webcam broadcast over the internet. The raids included homes in Australia, Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Norway, Portugal, and Sweden, according to the New York Times, which added that several dozen people were arrested, but officials said they expected more than 100 to be charged. The Independent later reported that 107 suspects were ultimately arrested. The Mercury News implied that that was only the tip of the iceberg. The ring actually extends into 47 countries. The case was described by a British official as stomach churning. The Times reported Wonderland Club members are believed to have posed their own children for pictures. In other cases, parents may have taken money to let their children be used. The Guardian reported that over 1,250 children were featured in the photos and videos, many of whom suffered appalling injuries and were seen sobbing uncontrollably as they were being sexually violated. The Independent added that the victimized children were mostly under the age of 10. A BBC report held that the combined raids resulted in the seizure of more than 750,000 computer images of children. A detective superintendent with the British National Crime Squad called these images disgusting and added that the behavior that has been carried out is absolutely appalling. The BBC also took note of the fact that, while ignored by the American press, Wonderland originated in the United States. And indeed it did. And indeed it did. Yeah? Let someone come back on YouTube. Because, like, people have threatened to sue me now, right? Come on here and refute that. You say that this book should be thrown in the trash. I think your channel should be thrown in the trash, quite frankly, but that's just my opinion. You picked a topic that you feel comfortable being disrespectful about. Don't want to talk about that, do you? But that's my sore spot. That's why I came onto YouTube. That's what I was covering on Instagram. And I understand that this topic makes me very emotional and it makes me very angry. But the idea that this whole book should be thrown out the window, no, it absolutely shouldn't. It's insulting. It's extremely insulting. I you know, I don't know, guys. I don't really know how much more I have to say. I I don't know. What else is there to say about a topic like this? Because this type of stuff, not just the occult crimes, not just the stuff with Kenneth Lanning, because Kenneth Lanning was like the best thing that ever happened to like the devil, you know what I mean? To Satanists and to cults specifically, he is their best friend. Best friend. But I you know, what else is there to say? Why won't people talk about this? I would like to know. I don't understand why this is so easily dismissed when the proof is out there. You know why it's easily dismissed? Because that is an unwillingness on adults' parts to recognize that these things happen. And it is. And it is. Because I'm going to show one more thing, if I can find it, and I will end with this. Because I covered this on a previous video not a long time ago, but one of my earlier videos. I covered this and I showed the article. I found it in a really old newspaper archive. And whatever, people can sit here and say that super conspiratorial, blah, 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 right? Okay, yeah, whatever you say. Let me find it. If it's going to show up, it may not show up. That is way too many references to that. Hold on. Let's go back up, and here we go. Come on, baby, go back up higher than that. Bear with me for 1 second, guys. I'm not trying to ignore the chat, but this is not a positive topic, obviously. And it obviously makes me very upset, so I kind of just want to get through it. Let me see really quick. Yeah. The first ever. Gosh, I shouldn't know all of the dang it. I'm not going to be able to find it. Damn. Sorry, guys. There we go. I found it. Yep, I knew where it was. Because when I did my Instagram videos, I had to re-edit them so many times, like to cut the time to make it fit in the minute and a half. So I had like this part of the book memorized because I was like trying to clean it up and I had to hunt down the news articles and blah 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 blah. Obviously, I don't think that that's going to bode very well on YouTube, because of the content, but whatever. But if you don't believe me, go look at the stuff about McMartin, because I found this old article because I had to see it for myself. Dave McGowan, nobody has debunked him. Sorry. So, a landmark study on the commercial sexual exploitation of children was conducted by the University of Pennsylvania's School of Social Work in 2001. The chilling report issued by the researchers was completely ignored by the U.S. media. That no doubt was due in part to the rather curious timing of the release of the report. It was released on September 10th, 2001, less than 24 hours before the World Trade Center towers came crashing down. The study notes that the era of economic globalization, internationalization, and free trade has been accompanied by a dramatic rise worldwide in the incidence of child exploitation, child pornography, juvenile prostitution, and trafficking in children for sexual purposes have emerged as significant problems on the national, regional, and international stages. So, too, has child sex tourism. Yeah? Maybe it's because people like Kenneth Lanning and, all these occult freaks, they deny that these things exist. You're wrong. You're wrong. And it's not everybody else's problem that people don't want to accept it because, children can't be the victims of the unwillingness of adults, the laziness of adults, because that is the rotten fruit, is that children are the victims of lazy adults and adults who don't want to face the reality of these things. because whatever, we're going to keep moving forward in what we're doing with the Son of Sam. We're nowhere near done, obviously. I'm not setting like a specific on anything in particular as far as what we're going to discuss next. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff going on, but that's fine. I wasn't expecting it to be smooth, but I think that this is setting the tone for people who want to be really dismissive about certain things. The law was on the bad guy's side, and it was, which is unfortunate, but that's just reality. Not everything is good, not everything is bad. It's complicated. Life is complicated, humans are complicated. But I won't tolerate people being dismissive towards me. I've shown the proof. Go watch my old videos. You want to see the news articles? Go look. I found them. I pull them up. And if people think that the timing is weird, fine. I don't care. He's just pointing out that it's interesting to consider the timing. I do the exact same thing. And Dave McGowan was way smarter than me. Dave McGowan's one of my heroes. And I wish that he was here to, see different things that we've discussed together, different things that we have figured out together that I think are really important, and information that maybe he didn't have access to. And this episode isn't about David McGowan, but I would rather end on the work of David McGowan than discussing the piece of shit Kenneth Lanning and what he has done to help perpetrate these types of crimes. And yes, thank you, Soil Watch. Children need to stop being the casualty to the indifference of adults. Yes, absolutely. They do, because that's what this is. This is indifference of adults. This is people not willing to acknowledge that these things exist or refusing. Oh, that's from my Loftus episode. I thought that it sounded familiar, but I didn't know if I said that. I was like, dang, if I said that, then hey, go me. That's a pretty good quote, eh? Give myself a gold star sticker for that. This is important. This is important context, guys. And I'm sorry, I really wasn't trying to ignore the chat by any means, but I wanted to get through this because it sucks. It sucks. And I didn't want to drag it out. And plus, like, it kind of brings down the vibe, obviously. Vibe check. Is your mental health okay? Like, let's everybody check in. No, it's not, but we'll survive. I don't know what we're going to do next. Haven't decided. We'll figure it out. We're just going to keep moving forward. Obviously, Mrs. Carr's vehement whatever her new statement, I'm gonna end here. This is where I'm gonna leave it. Excuse my language for the last time. It's fucking crazy to me that Mrs. Carr has now released an official statement that changes the original narrative to an extent almost 50 years later. That's real wild. That's crazy. I don't care if people think that that's crazy or not. I think that that's crazy. Yeah, that's nuts. But people just are acting like it's normal. Okay, whatever you say. I'm coming in harder, hotter. I'm not going to stop because I know I'm not breaking any laws. And if people having an opinion about you, ma'am, if you think that that is adjudication worthy, I might suggest that you get off of the internet. I'm just saying, because I'm under no disillusion that there are a lot of people on the internet that don't like me. That's just life. If everybody liked me, I would probably be lying to you guys, because that's just not reality. If I was super popular and everybody loved me, that should be a red flag, right? Because someone's going to disagree with me. The people are going to call me Q. They're going to call me a Christian extremist, like conspiracy theorist, whatever the case may be. So these are just things to consider. Because, like I said, that just has lit a fire. It's lit a fire. And just so you guys know, because obviously I have discussed the McClarys, and the individual, Lauren, the other whistleblower that set up their GoFundMe, we're going to have a very fascinating discussion about the intelligence perspective of the creation of those notes and the multiple discrepancies about what happened with Harvey and the location of that bullet. We have a lot of things to talk about, guys. A lot of things. Because, quite frankly, in my personal opinion, someone coming in and either they've withheld or they're trickling information when it's convenient, but they're doing this 50 years later. And it really does kind of change the story when you look at it, because we read through all of those newspapers, right? So that 1 in a million, that was so repetitive. Well, now, according to her, it's not real, which is just completely crazy to me. But guess what? Now we're going to do what I originally decided I was going to do, and we're going to literally question everything that she ever said. Hardcore. Hardcore. But I've got the, crazy, stupid, irrelevant Scientologist on my side, where people have only been getting really jumpy since we've been busting out the Auditor magazines and talking about like these really random people that we haven't even necessarily identified in the process. I've stated I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah, I've stated that. Yeah, I wonder if she could buy me a book with all of that reward money too. Straight up. That's what I would like to know. Almost 50 years later. Changing the story. I told you guys my opinion from the get-go, and it is just my opinion. And like I said, if you can't handle people having an opinion, you probably shouldn't be on the internet. But look at how things have unfolded in a short amount of time, and I know that quite a few people have been dealing with her for much longer than me. I'm not here to make friends. I don't care about making friends. I am here for the truth. I have zero allegiance to a single group of people. My allegiance is to the truth. And now that I have presented that the federal government is aiding and abetting, in my personal opinion, the way that they discuss these crimes specifically, and you can go back and watch my Elizabeth Loftus episode. I think that I have Alfred Kinsey and the False Memory Syndrome Foundation and Dr. John Money. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff on the false memory syndrome. Go back and look. Check it out. I do a bit more deeper dives. That was in my early days when I was very scared about like coming on the internet, but whatever. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I have the stuff there. It sets the context that this whole situation was set up for success, whether Wheat's going to admit it or not. But she literally just changed her story like 50 years later, so I don't know why anybody's listening to her. So we're going to leave it here for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I am sorry that I did not talk to the chat more. Thank you for writing it out with me. I know that it was tough. I'm going to run the exit, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon.